Good morning. Hi, Mr. Bond.
Right.
Good morning. If you're a victim here for court today, I'm going to ask you to put your phone on mute. When we call your case, we'll ask to hear from you. Yeah, you need to mute or turn your camera off. And then when we call your case, you can come back on and I'll hear from you at that time. Thank you. You need to.
That needs or camera on.
So, sir, you do need to mute yourself as well because we can hear every noise that goes on in the background and it will be disruptive to the proceedings. So if that's okay. Yeah, that's fine. Right. So when we get to your son's case, Mr. Felix, I will ask for your input on conditions of release. For right now, I need you to put your video on mute. There should be a button on your computer. We can do it on our end, but then it's going to make it hard for you. Are you on the phone? Okay, so I just need whoever's going to speak to mute the phone. Can you hand it to your daughter? Can she mute it for you?
Yeah, I'm muting us. I'm muting us.
Okay, thank you.
Morning, Your Honor. Good morning, Al.
Morning, Mr. Poston. Al, you're muted. I can't hear you.
How's about now, Your Honor?
Now is great. Thanks, sir.
Okay. Good morning, Your Honor. This is Pima County Jail. How are you this morning?
Good morning. I'm great. How are you all?
We're having kids.
I am.
Let's go. Which name, please?
Montiano,
Good morning. Tell me your name, sir.
Guadalupe Montiano Estrada.
Mr. Montiano, you are here today on a warrant out of Sarita Municipal Court for driving on a suspended license. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. We're here to talk about your conditions of release for this warrant. $100 cash bond request on the warrant. It looks like it has issued, or it issued on March 6th of 2025. So, Mr. Montiano, I do have the ability to release you today, but you have to promise that you're going to go to Sarita Municipal Court and get this matter taken care of. I know you're in custody on other charges. When's your next court hearing?
On April 20th.
Okay. So what I'm going to do, Mr. Montiano, is release you on these charges out of Sarita Municipal Court. You'll probably still be in custody. If you are, the jail will figure out how to get you to appear. I think Sarita does virtual appearances, so they'll put you in front of a camera for that.
Okay.
Your next court date is going to be April 22nd at 8:30 in the morning, and that will be on this particular case. Again, if you're in custody and the jail has the ability to do video appearance, you'll appear at that date and time. If not, you might want to let your felony attorney know that this is going on and you have that court date, and they can probably get it kicked out, or we can get it kicked out for you so you don't end up with another warrant on this matter. But it is something you need to take care of. Do you understand, Mr. Montiano?
Yes, I do.
All right, you're all done for today.
Thank you.
Meyer?
Hi, tell me your name.
James Christian Myrie.
Mr. Myrie, you are here today on a warrant out of Sarita Municipal Court for disorderly conduct and fighting. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. Looks like you also have other felony matters pending.
Yes, ma'am. I was unable to attend court due to me being here. I was incarcerated whenever that court date came about. Sure.
So what I'm going to do, it looks like they did issue the warrant on March 4th. I'm sure you were in custody then. How much longer,
Yeah.
how much longer are you there at the Pima County Jail?
This officer communicated with my mom and said that they are coming to pick me up today to take me to CBI. I'm going to rehab. And also I plan on going to sober living after that. And also I'd like to let the court know I'm working as a trustee for the jail.
That's great. That's all wonderful, Mr. Myrie. Thank you for taking care of all of that. And it sounds like you're on a very good path now and you'll do well on probation. So I tell you what, on this case, for this charge, I am going to release you. So
Yes, ma'am.
So this won't be holding you whenever you do get out. I'm going to give you a new court date at Sarita Municipal Court. You do have to show up at that court date. So I would make sure your probation officer knows if you're
Yes,
in,
sir.
if you're in residential treatment, whatever's going on, you just need to let them know so they continue that court date. But if you just don't show up, they're going to issue another warrant for you. Do you understand?
Yes, Your Honor. Understood.
Okay, so your next court date in Sarita Municipal Court is going to be on April 22nd at 8:30 in the morning. You do have to appear at that date and time. If you fail to appear, they'll issue another warrant for your arrest. Do you understand the consequences for failing to appear?
Yes, Your Honor. Just call the court, probation officer or the court directly. Okay. The attorney here let me know. All right, thank
Yeah,
you.
either one of them will work. You just need to make sure that you don't let that court date go. When you get released, you'll get paperwork for it. So just don't forget about it. That's the most important part. If you do get released or when you get released, don't have any contact with that victim of the disorderly conduct charge.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you're all done.
Yes, ma'am. Quick question. I have a different update that's for today. We are to about that. Where is that? That is Greenville. See if there's anywhere if one can get in touch with me. But wise, I have to read the same process. Okay. Signature. I'll have my mom contact this work, but yes. Understood. Thank you, Your Honor.
Have a good day.
Hello, Your Honor.
Hi, tell me your name.
Nino.
Mr. Nino, you are here today on multiple matters out of Pima County Justice Court. All of them are warrants for your arrest. I'm going to talk about each of those here in a minute. It also looks like you have other felony charges pending. Is that the case?
No.
Do you have other charges that you're dealing with at all that you're in custody for? Jail, do you have any other holds or information on him other than these 4 JP cases?
Tucson City and a warrant out of South Tucson.
Okay, so you do have other warrants out of other jurisdictions. And so regardless of what I do on these cases today, you're going to continue to be held until those matters get resolved. So, Mr.
She doesn't know.
Yeah, the only thing I can talk with you about today are these 4 cases. So you are here on a warrant out of justice court for indecent exposure is one of the charges.
She's gonna tell us eventually, but I'm gonna write it down.
One of the other is a threats and intimidation charge. That is a domestic violence offense. Another one is interfering with the judicial proceeding and disorderly conduct charge, also domestic violence offense. And then your last one is another interfering with a judicial proceeding. So there are bond amounts on each one of those warrants out of Pima County Justice Court. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. I am going to appoint Doug Taylor to represent you on all four of these matters, Mr. Nino. I am going to hold you on a bond of $500 cash on each one of these cases. So it's what we refer to as a consecutive bond. So you're going to have a $2,000 bond total on all four of these cases. Your next court date is going to be tomorrow, March 21st at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. If you can't post your bond and you're still in custody, the jail will have you appear much like you're doing here today via video so that you can get all four of these matters taken care of and resolved. Your court date is the same for all four and Mr. Taylor represents you on all four. All right. If you do get released for any reason between now and tomorrow at 1, you do have to show up at Justice Court tomorrow at 1 for that hearing. If you fail to appear, they could issue a warrant for your arrest. Do you understand?
Sounds good, miss.
All right, you're all done, Mr. Nino.
Thank you.
Oh, don't have anything on the Tucson or South Tucson matters, Judge?
No, that's what I told him.
Okay.
I don't have any information, only the four J3
thank you.
cases.
Oh. I have to talk to you guys. I had a death in the family. Earlier this year, my mother had.
Hi.
Her. How you doing?
Hi. I need to get some information from you first, okay?
How you doing?
Good. Tell me your name.
Bradley Penton, Penton.
All right. Give me just a second because it looks like you're out of order here. So let me find your file.
I'm sorry, Your Honor, he was out of order. What's this defendant's last name?
Penton.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Penton, you are here today on a warrant out of Justice Court for shoplifting and a failure to appear. And those looks like the warrant was issued March 6th of 2025. The offenses occurred back in October and November of 2024. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. It does look like you also have other felony matters pending. I'm showing that there is a felony warrant hold on you for other things. Jail, is that the case?
This is a pending felony case, Your Honor.
Okay.
Yes.
So Mr. Penton, what that means is regardless of what I do here today on this charge, you're going to continue to be held on that felony charge. I am going to release you on this shoplifting case today and give you a new court date. If you are still in custody, then the jail will make sure that you appear via video, much like you're doing here today for that court date. But if you get released on your felony case, you're also going to be released on this, and you have to promise to show up at a court date that I'm about to give you. Will you promise to do that?
Yes.
All right. Your next court date in Pima County Justice Court is going to be March 31st at 8:30 in the morning. Again, you do need to appear at that date and time or they'll issue a warrant for your arrest. If you do post bond or you do get released, and get your felony matter resolved, do not return to where the shoplifting occurred, the incident location. There are victims there and you can't have any contact with them. Do you understand all those conditions that I just gave you?
Yes.
And do you understand the consequences that they'll issue a warrant for you if you don't show up for your hearing?
Yes, just.
All right, you're all done for today, Mr. Penton.
Thank you very much. You have a very good day. Thank you. Take it.
Just a question. Once my daughter shows up, I need to turn on my camera.
You can turn on your camera when your daughter shows up, yes.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome. Hi, tell me your name.
Name's Cassie.
Can you speak English?
Cassie Williams.
Cassie Williams. What's your middle name, Cassie?
Danielle.
Danielle. So you are here today, ma'am, on a couple different felony charges. One is burglary in the second degree, and the other is a trespassing charge in the first degree. You do have the right to remain silent on those charges. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney in this matter. I'm going to appoint the public defender's office to represent you, and you do have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here today. We're here to talk about conditions of release on these charges. I've had the opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services that tells me a little bit about you. I've also had an opportunity to review the state's recommendation as to conditions of release. They're asking for a $15,000 bond. Mr. Poston, did you want to be heard further?
Your Honor, it was entirely blurry as far as if she had anything else pending. The comments section said there's a justice court case that looks suspiciously like this one. It may just be the interim complaint, probation violation warrants, Tucson City Court cases, and she's ROR. The question is, if she's ROR on felonies, the state would have the option to hold no bond. I wanted to know what the court's take on the facts were, Mr. Bonds.
So, Mr. Poston, it does look like that case in the comment section or in the status section for pretrial is the same interim complaint that she's here before us today on. So I don't know what that is. It does look like she has Tucson City Court cases and that there is a probation violation warrant probably out of the Tucson City Court cases. I don't have any.
Very well, Judge. Based on that, the state's asking for $15,000 because she was in somebody's house, went there when they were in there, was told to leave, refused. It's pretty wanton to go into somebody else's home while they're there without the resident's permission, and it does tend to shatter one's sense of security in one's own residence. State therefore believes the bond is appropriate, $15,000.
Mr. Bond.
Your Honor, Ms. Williams appears to have no prior criminal history, certainly no felony history. Well, no felony history. She has misdemeanors out of the city court at least. This appears to have been an extremely random act, not targeted at these particular individuals. From reading the interim complaint, there was no force used to get into the residence. There was no force or threats ever expressed against the residents. The facts of the nature of the incident raise a question in my mind about mental health issues. Ms. Williams is going to be in a much better position to get evaluations and treatment out in the community. I would ask the court to release her to pretrial services with instructions clearly to not return to this incident location or have any contact with these folks, but also perhaps to go mental health, at least evaluations if there's anything happening.
Due today on this case on a $2,500 cash or secured bond. If you're able to post that bond, then you'll be released to pretrial services. If you get released to pretrial, you're going to have to participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct. You're not allowed to possess or consume any alcohol or drugs, and you can't have any firearms. You are not allowed to return to the incident location or have any contact with the victims at that residence. Do you understand those conditions of release that I've just imposed? Yes, okay. And then your next court date is going to be March 31st at 1:30 in the afternoon. That's going to be what's called a preliminary hearing. That court date may or may not occur. If you post bond and you get released, it's going to be very important that you stay in contact with your attorney so they can let you know if there's any changes in the court date. If you fail to appear for that court date, they could issue a warrant for your arrest. Do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear?
If you miss any court dates that you have to appear in this case or in other even misdemeanor cases, if you don't show up when you're supposed to, a judge can issue an arrest warrant to then bring you back to court at some point.
I'm just trying to find a house to go to.
We'll work with you on that going forward, but for right now, do you understand that if you miss court dates, a judge can issue a arrest warrant? That's what the judge will do.
Do you understand that part, Ms. Williams?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you remain in custody, the jail has services there. They can certainly have you talk to someone at the jail if those are services that you need. And then if you post your bond, contact pretrial services and your attorney so we can make sure to give you some assistance. If you do post bond and get released, there's also the transition center. So if you get released from jail, the transition center is just off the property there. It's a little trailer. They also offer services. They can help with housing, mental health services, substance abuse services. There's a variety of things that they can assist with. So if you do post the bond and get released, I would encourage you to go by there. But you do need to stay in contact with your attorney. And again, ma'am, if you need assistance there at the jail, they'll be able to assist you as well, okay? All right, you're all done for today, Ms. Williams.
Your
Honor, this is Court Interpreter Penton.
Jail?
Yes, Your Honor.
I'm sorry, someone said your honor and I don't know who that was.
Your Honor, Pedro David, Court Interpreter. I was having problems with the telephone checking in, but I see that there are no Spanish Spanish matters this morning.
That is my understanding as well, Mr. Davis. Does the jail have the same information?
Correct, Your Honor.
All right, thanks for checking in, Mr. Davis. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Okay, hang on just a second. So, Mr. Bond, before we move on to the next one, also Mr. Poston, I was informed that Miss Williams, I guess, was actually seen yesterday on, I don't know, one of the two charges that reappeared in today's interim. It's the same interim complaint number, the same law enforcement number. There was a different preliminary hearing date that was given. So my intent would be to vacate that preliminary hearing. It does look like it's the same set of facts. I don't know how it happened, but there were additional charges added. Does either party need to make a record or have another suggestion on what to do with that?
No, Judge.
The added additional charges were on today's calendaring and okay. I would agree then, Your Honor. Let's work with this date, please, vacate the other.
Okay, so that's what we'll do is vacate the preliminary hearing that was set yesterday. All of her conditions of release as of today will be in effect, and the ones from yesterday will also be vacated. Mr. Poston, anything you want to add?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you for your patience, sir. Tell me your name.
Barnett, Felix.
All right, Mr. Felix. You are here today on charges related to domestic violence, interfering with a judicial proceeding. You do have the right to remain silent on these charges. Anything you say can and will be used against you. I've had the opportunity to review some information provided by pretrial services on this case. Tells me a little bit about you and the circumstances of the offense. There is also a victim who's on the phone. I know that your dad was on the phone earlier, and I think he's going to have a representative speak. So, ma'am, if you can hear me, *6 on your phone will unmute you so that I can hear you now. Are you there?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Can you hear us okay?
I can.
All right. So,
I just want to.
ma'am, hang on just a second. So I know that your father, Mr. Felix, is the victim in this case. He was on the phone. No. Felix, you need to wait. Mr. Felix at the jail, I just need you to wait and listen, and I will address you in a moment. So your father is listed as the victim. He did appear earlier and let me know that this person that's about to speak, whose name I'm going to get in a minute, is authorized to speak on his behalf as it relates to release conditions. So ma'am, tell me your name first, please.
Lisa Trejo.
All right, Ms. Trejo, what is it that you and your dad would like to tell me about conditions of release today? So the court has the choice to release Mr. Felix or to hold him on a bond. He is not going to be allowed to have any contact with your father or go anywhere near where he is living or working. That's something that is already in effect with the protection order and something that I will enforce today. What else would you like the court to know?
I also want my brother to know that we aren't doing this to hurt him. We hope that he decides to help himself and go to rehab. My brother is not stable due to his drug use, and my father lives in fear of his life daily. I'm requesting that my brother should only be released to a court-mandated rehabilitation facility and have his state of mind reviewed psychology, as well as not allowed back to my father's house.
Bab, can I speak, please?
Mr. Felix, you're going to want to hang on for just a second, okay? So ma'am, thank you for sharing that information. I will address his release conditions momentarily. I do want you to know that you or your father do have the ability, if you do believe that there are mental health issues, to file petitions through what's referred to as Title 36 proceedings. If he is in custody and remains in custody at the jail, they will evaluate that as necessary. I can't order him to be released to any particular facility. What I will be doing today is imposing his conditions of release. And as I've indicated, he's not allowed to have any contact with you or your father or go anywhere near where your dad is living or working. All right?
Okay.
And if you need assistance, ma'am, they have a victim services division at the Pima County Attorney's Office that will be able to assist you if you want some additional information about your options or your dad's options as a victim in this case, okay?
Thank you.
All right. So, Mr. Felix, we do need to address now your conditions of release on this case. I did review, as I've said, the pretrial services report that tells me a little bit about you and the circumstances. I've now had the I've had the opportunity to hear from the victims, which I am required to do by law. So I am going to impose conditions of release here today. Remember, anything you say can and will be used against you. So you should not be talking about the offense. So with that said, is there anything else you want the court to know before I impose conditions? Did you say no?
So, what, do I have somewhere to go? I do have somewhere to go.
You have somewhere to go. Is that what you just told me?
Yes, I do.
Apparently separate from the alleged victim's residence. That's what I was trying to ascertain.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Bond. All right. So, Mr. Felix, I am going to hold you today on a $2,000 cash or secured bond.
Can I please talk, please?
Well, she's talking. You
No.
can let her-
Can I please talk?
No,
Now, this is a.
No. Nope.
Can't help me with the 2,000.
Okay. So you're,
Please, I don't have no money. Time to get out. Please don't hold me.
Mr. Felix, you're being held on a $2,000 cash or secured bond. If you do post that bond, you're to commit no acts of domestic violence. You may not have, okay, then you're going to stay in jail. That's how that works. So if you keep this bond, then you're going to stay in jail until your next court hearing, which I'm going to give you. But I need to also tell you that if you do bond out, you are obligated to abide by conditions of release. There is an order of protection that was served on you that lists your father as the victim, and you are not allowed to have any contact with him. Don't go to his house. Don't go to where he's working. You can't call him. You can't text him. You can't ask a third party to reach out to him. You are not allowed to do anything with him at all. So if you get released, those are the court's orders. Do you understand all of those orders?
Yes, I do, ma'am, but I do not have any money to get
I am okay, well, I'm going to appoint Janet Altschuler to represent you. She's going to be your attorney on this matter. Your next court date is going to be March 27th at 8:30 in the morning. That's going to be your arraignment at Green Valley Justice Court.
So I'm gonna be released.
No, you're being held on a $2,000 bond. If you post that bond, then you can be released.
Your Honor, what was the court date and time again, please?
March 27th at 8:30 in the morning.
Could you be quiet so I can hear what she's saying, please? The time again, please, Your Honor?
8:30.
8:30.
Yeah. Mr. Felix,
Talk to you, and you'll be able to talk to her on whether she can file an motion to change.
Yeah.
But that's the judge's decision.
Can I talk, please?
no, Mr. Felix, we're done for today. I'm not changing my mind. These are the conditions today. What I need you to also know is if you don't show up to court and you post your bond, that you could have another warrant issued for your arrest. Do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear at that next hearing? Okay, you are all done for today. Ms. Altschuler will be in touch with you and she can review your conditions of release, but those are the court's orders today. You're all done, sir. Ms. Trejo, you and your father can go ahead and hang up now. Thank you for calling in.
have scripture.
Mr. Malo, are you on the phone? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can
Yes.
hear.
Oh, sorry. Hi, ma'am. Just a second. Mr. Malo, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. If you have a camera and you want to turn your camera on, you can. You also don't have to. You can leave that there. All right. Good morning, ma'am. Can you tell me your name, please?
Hi, my name is Maria Sofia Malo Loyola.
Ms. Malo Loyola, you are here this morning on charges of criminal damage and assault. These are domestic violence offenses. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. I've had an opportunity to review some information provided by pretrial services. Tells me a little bit about you and the circumstances of this offense. It also provided me with some information that I need to consider conditions of release here today. Your father, who is the victim in this case, is also appearing. Mr. Malo, what is it that you would like the court to know, not about the facts of the case, but only as to the conditions of release? I will tell you I'm inclined to release her today, and she's not going to be allowed to commit any further acts of domestic violence. Talk with me a little bit about whether or not you want to have contact with her.
Your Honor, I have an application, a petition for my daughter to go to the crisis response center. I fill out this application because my daughter has been taking a treatment because she was diagnosed in the last clinic with bipolar disorder. So she needs to be taking her medicine. And otherwise, if she's not sleeping well and she's not taking the medicine, she's going to go again to the same cycle. We would really, this is not the first petition. I have a petition here in that it was, this was February 10th. And she went to the CRC and the next day she was released. And then the cycle goes again and again. So she really needs at least 2-week supervision, medical supervision. So in this petition, I also have another petition for a court-ordered treatment. They told me that I need to go to community bridges because my daughter, she's so bright, she's so intelligent, she's doing a career in Mexico, and she needs to go back to her career in August, hopefully, but she needs a rehab. So in order to get that rehab, ideally she would go first to CRC to get medical professionals evaluate her, but then she would need at least 2 weeks of just following psychiatrist's orders.
So
And she
Mr.
will,
Okay, so
Yeah.
Mr. Malo, I know that you're holding up papers and I'm not able to see them from here. I trust that that's what
Oh.
you're holding up as petitions. That's fine. Jail, do you
Oh, yeah.
have any information on a petition to have her transported to CRC if I release her today?
oh, I just,
Mr. Malo, Mr. Malo, hang on. I need to ask the jail because you may have the documents there. But if the jail doesn't have them before she's released today, I'm not planning on holding her for that. So she can still go to the CRC. You can still do all of that, but let me hear from the jail first. Jail?
Yep.
Al, I don't know if you're muted, but I can't hear the jail.
I'm sorry, I didn't know it muted everyone.
Okay. Jail, do you have any information on a Title 36 petition for Miss Malo, Loyola?
We do not, Your Honor.
You do?
We do not.
You do not. Okay.
they told me I filled out this yesterday night and I have to drop off this in the jail this morning. So I was waiting to do this right after the court
Okay.
appearance.
Okay. So what's going to happen, Mr. Malo, is I'm going to release her on this case. It will take some time for the jail to process her out. So if you get there with that paperwork and the jail is listening to everything that you're saying, then they can transport her to the CRC under the paperwork that you have. But you do need to get to the jail to make sure that they receive that paperwork before she gets released. Do you understand?
I'm on my way this as soon as we finish here. Yeah.
Okay. Jail, is there anything else you need from us on that? I heard no, Your Honor. Okay. So just make sure you get down to the jail with the paperwork. So Miss Malo Loyola, again, as I've said, you're going to be released on your promise to appear. I'm going to give you a future court date. Will you promise me that you'll show up at Green Valley Justice Court for your court date?
I promise to show up. I personally don't want anything to do with what my dad wants for me. He is also abusive towards me, and I know he will deny, but everyone has their own story. I personally don't want to go to a mental hospital. I can talk to many doctors. I have cope doctors. I have other doctors. He always wants to put his agenda on me, and I am not his to do that. I want to have my own. I'm not going back to his house unless I come with a cop. I don't want to go back to his house unless I have to get my things, but I'm not gonna go anywhere near him.
Okay.
Because, yeah, and I don't want him to have control or have a petition, which I can get. Like, if they transfer me to,
Prevent him.
I know, yeah,
There's nothing she can.
I would also love to file a petition against him because
So-
he has those mental disabilities that he so claims that I have.
So Ms. Malo Loyola, what I have before me today is just the 2 domestic violence charges out of justice court. So that's what the court has to consider. And you heard the exchange that I had with your father. If he gets to the jail and his paperwork is all in order, then the jail will take you to the CRC and it'll be completely up to them in terms of what happens next based on your interaction there. So again, that's something that the jail has to determine once they get that. But for what I have before me today is I'm releasing you so that you can show up for that March 27th hearing in Green Valley Justice Court at 8:30 in the morning. You do have to appear at that date and time or they could issue a warrant for your arrest. Do you understand that?
Okay. Yes,
Now-
thank you so much.
For your conditions of release, what I am going to do at this time is order. And I know you said you don't want the contact. So this will be for both you and your father. You're not to have any contact with him at all. Do not go to where he is living or working. However, I will put that you may return to the residence one time with law enforcement to get your belongings. You just need to make sure you get a copy of this order. Whenever you get released, the jail will give it to you. Take it to a nearby substation for law enforcement or call 911 and let them know you would like to go to the residence to get your belongings. Don't go back there without law enforcement, but you can take them one time to get whatever it is that you need. Do you understand those conditions?
Yes, I understand. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Malo, do you understand all those conditions as well?
Yes, I need the address of the jail, please.
Okay, the address. I don't want him.
I
anywhere
don't-
near-
I honestly don't know what the jail address is. I know it's on Silver Lake. That's the best that I can tell you.
Oh, okay.
So I'm sure if you Google it, that will come up for you. So I know Silver Lake and that's all I know, sir.
Well,
Okay, so it sounds like you already have it. Okay. All right. Ms. Malo Loyola, you're all done for today. Mr. Malo, you as well. Thank you for calling in.
Chance Raymond. We get over to.
Hi, sir. Tell me your name.
I am Chance Raymond.
Mr. Raymond, you are here today on charges of disorderly conduct, fighting, and DV assault. Actually, they're both DV charges out of Pima County Justice Court. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. We're here today to talk about your conditions of release on these charges. I've had the opportunity to review some information provided by pretrial services that tells me a little bit about you and the circumstances of the offense. If I release you today, will you promise to show up at a court date that I give you in the future?
So yes, but I am out of state, and I was going to see if there's anything we could work out to get to this court date. 'Cause I'm from Washington originally.
So your conditions of release that you're going to sign will say that you have to remain here until your next court date or until a judge gives you permission. So the other part of this is you're not going to be allowed to return back to your mom's house or have any contact with her for now. Pretrial
No.
Pretrial services was not able to get a hold of her. So do you have somewhere that you can stay here in the interim?
Well, I have a different hotel I can go to till Wednesday, but that's when my trip is over, and I'm supposed to fly back to Washington.
Where in Washington do you live?
Kennewick,
Where?
Kennewick in Benton County.
So it looks like your girlfriend, is it Taylor, told pretrial services that she was welcome to have you stay with her for the time being. Is that an option for you?
It is.
Okay, so you're gonna have to stay here until that March 31st hearing. So I'm gonna release you today. If you want to contact Justice Court and see if they can expedite that hearing for you, it will have to be at least 5 days from today before they can expedite the hearing. But you can certainly, when you get out later today, see if that's something that they can do. Because your mom is the victim in this case, the statute requires that she have at least 5 days notice for any kind of a hearing. But you do need to have your arraignment in justice court. So they may be able to move that up for you. And then you could get permission from that judge to travel back to Washington. But I'm not going to be able to make that determination today. Do you understand all of that?
I do understand. Who would I contact to start this whole process? Sorry.
It would be the Pima County Justice Court.
Okay. Oh,
There.
oh, you're
Stuff. Right.
No.
Were you going to appoint counsel, Your Honor, or?
So I'm not going to appoint. This is a misdemeanor case. So you're going to be released, as I've indicated, Mr. Raymond, on your promise to appear. The next court residents to pick up anything that belongs to you.
no.
Then when you get released later today from the jail, they're going to give you paperwork. It's also going to have the address and phone number for Pima County Justice Court. So I would suggest honestly walking in here to the clerk's office and letting them know. They probably have forms. If you're computer savvy, you could look online. They probably have forms as well to see if you can get an expedited hearing so that you can get permission to travel to Washington while this case is going on.
Alrighty.
All right.
There's that
And
rest.
I do need to tell you that if you fail to appear at that March 31st hearing, they could issue a warrant for your arrest. Do you understand that?
You understand?
Okay, you're all done for today.
You should get out of here. Well, yeah. It's just going to explain your issue and see what they can do about it.
Santiano.
Hi, sir. Tell me your name.
Christopher Santiano.
Mr. Santiano, you are here today on 2 counts of disorderly conduct. It is a domestic violence offense. You do have the right to remain silent on these charges. Anything you say can and will be used against you. We're here to talk about your release conditions today on these charges. I've had the opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services. Tells me a little bit about you and the circumstances of the offense. Tells me that your parents are the victims in this matter. I am going to order that you not have any contact with your parents in this case. You're not going to be allowed to return back to where they are living or working. Mr. Santiano, if I release you on these charges today, will you promise to show up at a court date that I give you in the future?
Yes, Your Honor.
And then do you need to return to your parents' house for any belongings?
Yeah, that's where I currently reside, but all my work clothes and my children's belongings.
Okay.
So yes,
But
No.
you do have a separate place you can't live.
I can't go somewhere else. Yes.
She can advise you to return once with.
Yes, sir.
So,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Santiano, I am going to release you on your promise to appear on these charges. When you get released later today, you're going to get a copy of your appearance order with release conditions. As I've indicated, you're not to have any contact with your parents. The victims in this case don't go to where they're living and working. I have checked a box on your form that says you may return with a police escort to pick up your belongings. You're going to need a copy of the order, take it to a nearby substation, police department, or you can call 911 and let them know that you would like to go to the residence. Don't sit outside your parents' residence. You should be down the street somewhere at a convenience store somewhere else. And then law enforcement will meet you and then you'll both go to the house together so you can collect your belongings. You're also not to commit any further acts of domestic violence. Do you understand all those conditions of release?
Yes, Your Honor.
And your next court date, March 31st at 10:30 in the morning, that will be at Pima County Justice Court. You do need to appear at that date and time. If you fail to appear, a warrant could issue for your arrest. Do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear?
Yes, Your Honor.
You're all done for today.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. That's all I gotta do. Show up here. Okay, thank you.
So people share. I'm good with that. Chair. That means, yeah, yes. How are you doing today?
Sir, tell me your name.
Arnulfo Tigochea.
Mr. Dicochea, you are here today on matters out of Tucson City Court. It does look like you have some older matters, and the new charges today involve a DV criminal damage and a DV disorderly conduct charge. You do have the right to remain silent on these cases. Anything you say can and will be used against you. I am going to appoint the City Public Defender's Office to represent you. I've had an opportunity to review some information provided by pretrial services. It tells me a little bit about you and the circumstances of the case. This is the time for your conditions of release to be set on this matter. In reviewing all of the information, I am going to impose a bond in this matter of $1,000 cash or secured,
Your Honor, can I say something?
as long as it doesn't have to do with the offense, sir.
It doesn't, ma'am.
Okay.
It has to do with I have a sickness. It's called obstructive sleep apnea, and I'm not even have my breathing machine here while I'm at the jail. So I've been dying in my sleep every day from having this problem that I have. I'm diagnosed with it. Is there any way you can release me and I can show up to next court date, whatever you give me? This sickness is doing a lot to me. So it's
Okay.
I have literally heart palpitations, the stuff that's it's doing a lot to me, you know what I mean?
Mr. Decote, you need to communicate that information to the jail. Based on the information I have today, I am going to impose that $1,000 cash or secured bond. So you'd have to come up with 10% of that if you want to be released on this. You're not to commit any further acts of domestic violence, and you can't have any contact with Albert Rodriguez. Don't go back to the incident location where he's living or working. Do you understand those conditions of release?
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, I do.
And let the jail know about your medical concerns, and they will be able to assist you with those. Your next court date is going to be a video review hearing if you remain in custody. That's going to be March 26th at 1:30 in the afternoon in front of Judge Millian. If you do remain in custody, they're going to have you appear via video, much like you're doing today. If you do post that bond and you get released, then you do need to appear at Tucson City Court on your own at that same day and time. If you get
March 26th, you said?
March 26th at 1:30, yes. And so, like I said, if you do post that bond and you get released, the jail's going to give you paperwork, and it will have the Tucson City Court address and phone number as well as the court date. And I know Mr. Bond, the attorney sitting next to you, just handed that to you.
Yeah.
If you fail to appear, they can issue a warrant for your arrest. Do you understand, Mr. Decochea?
Yes, Your Honor. And besides keeping the $1,000 post bond, like having these problems that I have with my sleep apnea and like not be able to sleep correctly at night, like having these issues, there's no way you can release me upon that. Like I don't want to.
She's already said no.
It's just the fact.
I'm not
the
going
fact
to,
that
Mr. Decochea.
I'm not.
No, I'm not changing my mind. You're all done for today. You need to communicate your medical concerns to the jail.
All right, and all right.
City public defender is also review on trying to get that changed. Give what you were saying. The bond.
Bond. All right, Your Honor. You have a good day.
You too.
Yes, Lopez.
Hi, sir. Tell me your name.
Justin Lopez.
Mr. Lopez, you were here today on some new charges out of Tucson City Court and multiple warrants out of Tucson City Court for failing to appear. The new charges are for criminal trespass in the 3rd degree and also theft. You do have the right to remain silent on those charges. Anything you say can and will be used against you. As I've said, you're also here on charges involving drug paraphernalia, criminal trespass, multiple counts on multiple days, and a few different cases. This is also the time for your arraignment on the new charges. You are presumed innocent. I'm going to enter not guilty pleas on your behalf for those 2 new charges. We're here to set conditions of release on these matters. Mr. Lopez, I am going to impose a bond today of $500. That is going to be a cash or secured bond. If you post that bond, you're not to have any contact with the victims and not to return to the incident locations where the criminal trespass occurred, where the theft occurred. You are not welcome back there. You may not return there. That's where the victims are. I am going to appoint the City Public Defender's Office to represent you today. Do you understand the conditions of release that I've just imposed?
Yes.
Your next court date is going to be March 28th at 1:45. That's going to be a video review hearing if you remain in custody in front of Judge Hale. So if you don't post your bond and you stay in jail, you're going to be seen just like you are today in front of Judge Hale on March 28th. If, however, Mr. Bond, I'm about to give you another date.
Oh, okay.
If you post the bond, Mr. Lopez, then your court date is going to be April 28th at 9 in the morning at Tucson City Court. When you do get released, you're going to get information from the jail. It'll have a piece of paper that's going to have the dates as well as the location where you do need to appear. If you fail to appear for your court date, you can have another warrant issued for your arrest. They also, on the new charges, can go forward in your absence. And if they go forward in your absence and set a trial and you're convicted at that trial, you could also lose your right to a direct appeal if you can't be sentenced within 90 days. Do you understand all of those consequences if you fail to appear for your next court date?
Yes.
All right, you're all done for today, Mr. Lopez.
So you're either gonna do video for it on the 28th, if you're still here, get bonded out, you gotta go for yourself, Tucson City Court. All meet up on April 28th at 9. So how would I know? How would I know if I had a bond? If Quick, how will you know if you get bonded out? You won't be in jail anymore. You'll be out of jail. That's how you'll know. People number or something. Then you're gonna probably stay in jail. No one's gonna be able to post bond for you. You'll likely stay in jail until your court then. Okay.
Come on, love.
In jail, I'm showing a probation hold for Mr. Lowe. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
I do, sir. I'm all right.
Hi, tell me your name.
Michael James Lau.
Mr. Lau, you are here today on some new charges out of Tucson City Court and also multiple warrants out of Tucson City Court. I also have information that you're being held for a probation matter. So please know whatever I do here today, you're not going to be released until that probation matter gets resolved. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. I am going to appoint the City Public Defender's Office to represent you on all of these charges today. For the new charge of criminal trespass and drug paraphernalia, this is also the time for your arraignment. I need to tell you that you are presumed innocent, and I'm going to enter not guilty pleas on your behalf for those two new charges. The other warrants that you have out of Tucson City Court are also for criminal trespass. I'm going to impose a bond today of $500. That's a cash bond. If you post that bond, then you are going to be released. If you don't post that bond, you're going to remain in custody. If you post bond, you're not allowed to return to the places where you've committed the criminal trespass charges. Don't go back there. That's where the victims are. You may not be there. Do you understand the conditions of release, Mr. Lau?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Your next court date is going to be March 28th at 1:45 in front of Judge Mayhew. That's going to be what we refer to as a video review hearing. If you're still in custody, you're going to appear just like you're doing here today via video in front of Judge Mayhew from City Court. If you post the $500 cash bond today, then you're going to appear on April 22nd at 9 a.m. at Tucson City Court. If you get released, they will give you paperwork so that you'll know when your next court dates are. If you fail to appear for the court date, they can issue a warrant for your arrest. They could also go forward with hearings in your absence. And if they have a trial in your absence and you get convicted, then you could also lose your right to a direct appeal if they can't sentence you within 90 days. Do you understand all those consequences for failing to appear?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, you're all done for today, Mr. Lau.
I'm gonna give you that with your Tucson City Court dates. Okay, your city public defender will get in touch with you real soon. I'll have time. You're also probably gonna get an attorney assigned on your probation case. I mean, okay. Thank you. All right, take care.
No. Yes. She ready? He's ready. Yeah.
Hi, tell me your name.
The name is Mr. Mindville. Lenny Mindville.
Lenny. First name is Lenny?
Yes.
All right. You are here for an initial appearance on some charges out of Tucson City Court for criminal trespass, disorderly conduct, criminal nuisance, obstructing a public thoroughfare, and criminal trespass. You do have the right to remain silent on these charges. Anything you say can and will be used against you. This is also the time for your arraignment on these new charges. You are presumed innocent. I'm going to enter not guilty pleas on your behalf. We're here to talk about conditions of release. It does look like you have another Tucson City Court matter as well. Those are going to be consolidated. If I release you today on these charges, will you promise to show up at a court date that I give you in the future?
Yes.
All right. I am going to release you on your promise to appear on these charges. You are not to have any contact with the victims. That means don't return to the incident location where the criminal trespasses occurred. Don't have any contact with the disorderly conduct victims. Do you understand those conditions?
Yes, Your Honor.
Your next court date is going to be April 22nd at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. That's going to be in front of Judge Verena at Tucson City Court. You are required to appear at that date and time, and if you fail to appear, they could issue a warrant for your arrest. They could also go forward with that hearing in your absence and set other hearings in your absence, including a trial. If you get convicted at that trial and can't be sentenced within 90 days, you're also going to lose your right to a direct appeal. Do you understand all of those consequences if you fail to appear?
Yes.
All right, you're all done for today.
Okay, there's your court date.
To me, I put 4/16 as well.
What's that?
4/16 as well.
What about 4/16?
So she took it.
There's no court date set on 4/16.
I have a court date on 4/16.
Okay, also. Okay, 4/16. I'm on it. All right.
Once that's a one gets someone lost, you give it to where they're at. If they're in holding cells, they'll write them. So. Once they're cleared, alongside if they're released with an OR, or if they have a bond. And if they're held in superior court, they're held. If they're sentenced to our time already, that they're just going to make it. So obviously, I think it's like
Hi, can you tell me your name, ma'am?
Vanessa Vasquez.
All right, hang on. All right. Ms. Vasquez, you are here today on multiple cases and charges. Looks like you're here for many warrants out of South Tucson City Court involving theft, multiple counts of theft, criminal trespass, failing to appear. Looks like there are a total of 7 or 8 warrants here. You're also here on a Tucson City Court matter. We're going to talk about those, or a couple Tucson City Court matters. We're going to talk about those in just a moment. You do have the right to remain silent on these cases. Anything you say can and will be used against you. I am going to appoint an attorney to represent you on the South Tucson cases. That's going to be Michael Vaughn. We're here, ma'am, today to set conditions of release on these cases.
So this will get noted.
Okay.
I am going to impose a bond today for the Tucson City Court matters. There are $500 bond requests on each one of these. Some of them are $1,000 cash. I'm going to impose a $1,500 cash bond today for all of your South Tucson City Court matters that you have pending. If for some reason you post that cash bond, Ms. Velasquez, you are not to have any contact with the victims in these cases. Don't go back to the incident locations. All the places where the shopliftings occurred and the criminal trespasses, that's where the victims are, and you're not allowed to return there. Do you understand those conditions of release?
Yeah.
Your next court date in South Tucson City Court is going to be tomorrow, March 21st at 10 o'clock in the morning. I do believe that's a video court appearance. So if you're still in custody and you don't post that bond, you'll do much like you're hearing today. You'll be seated before a city magistrate from South Tucson who will hear your cases and resolve these matters for you. You'll also have an opportunity to meet with your attorney, Mr. Vaughn. You fail to appear for that court date, they could issue for a warrant for your arrest. Do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear on those South Tucson matters?
Yes.
All right. We also need to discuss your Tucson City Court case. So you were here on a new charge on the Tucson City Court case, and there was also a warrant issued for your arrest for a shoplifting previously. Those matters are going to be consolidated. Again, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. I'm going to appoint the City Public Defender's Office to represent you in these matters. I am going to impose a bond on this case of $500. That's going to be a or secured bond in that matter. I'm going to give you a court date in Tucson City Court of March 28th at 1:45. If you remain in custody, that's going to be the date and time that you'll be seen. The jail, again, will have you appear via video at that date and time. If you post the $500 bond, then your court date is going to be April 22nd at 9 a.m. at Tucson City Court. You are not allowed in that case to have any contact with the victims or return to where the criminal trespasses or shopliftings occurred. This is also the time for your arraignment on that new city court matter. You are presumed innocent. I'm entering a not guilty plea on your behalf. If you fail to appear for your court dates at Tucson City Court, they can also issue a warrant for your arrest. They can also go forward with proceedings in your absence if you don't appear. That includes setting a trial. If you get convicted at that trial and can't be sentenced within 90 days, they could also, or you could also lose your right to a direct appeal. Do you understand all of those consequences if you fail to appear for your hearings?
Yes.
Okay, you're all done for today.
Okay.
Come on, Hampton, you're up, man, right there, chair. That's sweet for sweet.
Oh, no.
Hi, tell me your name.
Jimmy Vicente Hampton.
I'm sorry, your name again?
Jimmy Vicente Hampton. Jimmy Vincent Hampton.
Jimmy Vincent Hampton. Okay, hang on. All right, Mr. Hampton, you are here today on multiple warrants out of Tucson City.
Oh, time to get on the top of all this stuff.
You have a bunch of warrants out of City.
Oh, bullshit.
And then there's new charges that you're here for today as well. Disorderly conduct.
The cashier bought me some cappuccino, and then I went outside. The cops showed up because I'm ready to. It was wrong for me to ask the cashier.
Mr. Hampton, hang on just a second, okay? So you're here on all of these charges. What I want you to know is that you do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say and it will be used against you. I am going to appoint the City Public Defender's Office to represent you on all of these cases today. Given the number. You're gonna get, Mr. Hampton, you're gonna get the chance to talk to your attorney about all of that. Well, I'm not gonna. Okay, well, that's not the information I have, but you should talk with your attorney about that, Mr. Hampton. I am gonna impose a bond today of $2,000. That's gonna be a cash or secured bond. If you do post that release, you can't have any contact with the victims or return to the incident locations. Your next court date is going to be next week. It's going to be March 27th at 1:45. That's going to be in front of Judge Blue. Have you seen Judge Blue before, Mr. Hampton? Do you know Judge Blue? Okay, and so we'll talk about that too. I am going to enter not guilty pleas on your behalf for all of these charges. You are presumed innocent. Do you understand the conditions that I impose today? I know you don't like them. Do you understand the conditions? Okay. You're going to get a chance to talk with Judge Blue a little. Okay, well, we're not going to release you today. Have your next court date. And I do need to tell you that if you don't show up at your next court date, they can issue a warrant for your arrest, Mr. Hampton. Do you understand that? So Mr. Bond's going to give you.
Well, then, clarify that for you. Okay.
They'll be able to talk to you and do all of that. Again, you just need to make sure you show up for court. If you stay in custody, Mr. Hampton, they'll make sure. If you don't show up to court, they can go forward with hearings in your absence as well. Okay, I just need to finish a couple more sentences and then you'll get a chance to go for today. So if you don't show up for court, they can set future hearings in your absence, including a trial. And if you get convicted at that trial and can't be sentenced within 90 days, you could lose your right to a direct appeal. All right, Mr. Hampton, you're all done for today. On the Hampton one, yeah, I don't think there was a bunch that I didn't sign. Mr. Bond, I think you still may be muted. Did you mute for the last one? There we go.
Not intentionally, Judge, no.
Thank you. Hi, sir. Tell me your name.
Christopher Michael Coon.
Mr. Coon, you were here today on a couple of felony charges. I'm going to ask Mr. Bond to show those to you on the computer screen. We're also here to talk about a city court case. We'll do that after we're done with your felony case. You do have the right to remain silent on these charges. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney on this matter. Today, I'm appointing the legal defender's office to represent you, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here today. He's not going to be your attorney, but he will be representing you as we discuss conditions of release, which is what we're here to talk about today. I've had the opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services on this case. Tells me a little bit about you and the circumstances of the offense. I've also had a chance to review information provided by the state as to your conditions of release. They're asking for a $5,000 bond. Did you get a chance to take a look at those charges, Mr. Coon?
He doesn't have reading glasses, Your Honor, so I'm going to mute for a moment so I can explain them to him. All right, we're ready, Judge.
All right. Did you get a chance to discuss the charges with your attorney, Mr. Coon?
Yeah.
And the state is recommending a $5,000 bond. Mr. Poston, did you need to be heard further? Mr. Bond, did you want to be heard on conditions?
Yes, Your Honor. It looks like Mr. Coon had been in compliance under the statutes at some point. It may have just been a more recent failure to update. Any of his prior felony convictions are fairly old. He has housing available to him in town. At the moment, Your Honor, I would ask the court to release him, perhaps under the supervision of pretrial services. And then with the assistance of his counsel, he can, perhaps address the situation.
Mr. Coon.
And he also has active employment, apparently.
I was wondering about that. All right.
I work full time at used to be Chevron.
Okay.
I don't know if I work at Quick Brick full time from full time every day.
Okay, so Mr. Coon, if I release you today to the custody of pretrial services, you're also going to be ordered to go to the sheriff's department within 2 days of your release today so that you can get this taken care of. You're also going to talk with your attorney. Will you do all of that if I release you to pretrial services?
Yes, I will.
Okay. I am going to release you to pretrial services today. You're going to have to stay in contact with that agency while this case is going on. You do have to report to the sheriff's department. When you get released later today, the paperwork's going to give you the address and phone number, and it does require that you go there within 2 days following your release to get things taken care of. And to get re-registered. You have to participate in any monitoring or treatment pretrial services tells you to. You can't have any alcohol or illegal drugs, and you can't have any firearms while this case is going on. Your next court date is going to be April 9th at 1:30 in the afternoon. That's a preliminary hearing. That hearing may or may not occur, but you're responsible for showing up at all future court dates. And if you fail to appear, a warrant can issue for your arrest. Do you understand the conditions of release that I've imposed today, Mr. Coon?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear?
Yes, ma'am.
So we also need to talk about your Tucson City Court matter. It looks like there was a warrant for a false reporting to law enforcement on that case. I am going to release you on your promise to appear. That's something that's not going to go away, sir. You've got to go get that hearing resolved. So I'm going to give you a new court date on that one today.
This judge can't fix that.
Oh, no, I went to court already. I spoke to my lawyer about it. She said, we have a court date coming up next month for the misdemeanor warrant.
She's gonna tell you the court date that's gonna count, yeah.
Okay.
All right. So again, I'm releasing you on that false reporting charge. Your next court date is going to be April 22nd at 9 o'clock in the morning, and that's going to be in front of Judge Mayhew. You do need to appear at that date and time, or they can issue another warrant for your arrest. That's not going to go away. Just make sure you talk to your attorney so you can get it all taken care of. All right, Mr. Coon?
Yes, is that the pink building?
No,
Or-
no. Tucson City Court. When you get released, there's going to be an address on the paperwork. It's off of Alameda. So you need to make sure that you appear at that date and time. All right.
Yeah.
You should hand me those other ones.
So we're all done, Judge?
Yes, we're all done with Mr. Coon.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Hi, ma'am. Tell me your name.
My name is Rokima Jones.
Ms. Johns, you are here today on 4 counts of child abuse. They are class 4 felonies. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. I am going to appoint the public defender's office to represent you today, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of this hearing. We're here to set your conditions of release on these felony matters. Jail, do you have any kind of hold on the warrant out of Marion County?
No, Your Honor.
So, ma'am, I'm not hearing that case today, but I will note that in reviewing information provided by pretrial services, there is a warrant for another DUI offense out of Marion County. So you should be aware that that's there.
Yes, ma'am.
I've had an opportunity to review the state's recommendation as to your conditions of release. They're asking for a $30,000 bond. I'm familiar with the interim, obviously. Mr. Poston, is there anything you would like to add?
Person needs to be stopped. It's an active yes. It's a yes on the NVCA. 5 out of 3. And given the nature of this accusation as well as the previous cases that she has, the state believes she is a threat to the community as well as the people in her immediate family. $30,000.
Mr. Bond, I am inclined to hold her on a bond.
Your Honor, it appeared to me that the Marion, I'm sorry. It appeared to me that the Marion County case was from 2015. Her prior offenses seem to be older. She has advised me she has a dog that is waiting at home. Her children are out there, and she says there is no DCS case or custody of those children at this point. She's advised me she has an SMI designation and is experiencing a great deal of mental stress here in the jail. She said, I believe she has employment waiting today. Your Honor, I would ask the court to consider releasing her to pretrial or enhanced with strict conditions, no driving without a valid license, no consuming alcohol before driving. The standard appropriate conditions the court's well aware of for this.
Mr. Bond, I will tell you, there is no such thing as enhanced supervision anymore through pretrial. So that's not an option for the court. Ms. Johns, I am going to hold you today on a $25,000 cash or secured bond. If you're able to post that bond, then you'll be released to pretrial services. You're going to be ordered to participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct if you get released. Ms. Johns, I need you to pay attention because I'm about to review a whole bunch of information that I need your attention for. You'll get a chance to talk to Mr. Bond when I'm all done. You must participate in any monitoring or treatment as directed by pretrial services if you post your bond and get released. They will require you to test for alcohol. You are not allowed to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs. Do not drive without a valid license. You're not allowed to have any firearms while this case is going on. You are not allowed to have any unsupervised contact with the victims in this case. And if DCS does become involved, then you're going to have to abide by any conditions that they require as well. That means there needs to be another adult, someone else present whenever you're around your children. They are the victims listed in this case. Your next court date is going to be March 31st at 1:30 in the afternoon. That hearing is a preliminary hearing. It may or may not occur, but you're responsible for showing up at all future court dates. And if you fail to appear, a warrant could issue for your arrest. If you post bond and get released, it's going to be important you stay in contact with your attorney so that you don't miss any future court dates. Do you understand the conditions of release that I've imposed in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear for your future court date?
Yes, ma'am.
You're all done for today.
So a lawyer from the public defender's office, yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
Hi, tell me your name.
Jesus Sierra.
Mr. Sierra, you are here today on a charge of second-degree murder. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney in this matter. Today, I'm appointing the legal defender's office to represent you, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here today. He's not going to be your attorney, but he will be representing you as we discuss conditions of release, which is what the court has to decide today. I've had the opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services. I've also had a chance to review the state's recommendation. They're asking for $1 million bond. Again, Mr. Poston, I've read the interim. I'm familiar with the facts of the case. Is there anything you would like to add?
No, Judge.
Mr. Bond, I am inclined to impose a $500,000 cash or secured bond. I know the state's asking for $1 million.
Your Honor, before we address the release conditions, I wonder if I can raise one concern. As I read through the interim complaint, it does seem to me the evidence that police have or allege in the IC simply is, it's essentially mere presence for the gentleman here. He was simply in a vehicle that may have been involved in the collision. The evidence is not, I would argue, is not even to the probable cause level as to whether or not he actually committed the crime or was simply found after the fact in a vehicle potentially associated with the collision.
And I do find that there is probable cause to go forward at this time, Mr. Bond.
That said, then, Your Honor, I am going to ask the court to consider a much lower bond than $500,000. This was not a targeted event. Mr. Sierra has no prior felony history that I saw. I would ask for a far less onerous bond than a $500,000.
Mr. Sierra, I am going to impose a bond today of $500,000 cash or secured. If you post that bond, then you'll be released to pretrial services. You have to participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct. You are not allowed to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs. You may not drive without a valid license, and you're not allowed to have any firearms while this case is going on. You're also not allowed to have any contact with the victim's family in this case. They are considered victims of this crime. You are also not allowed to go anywhere near where any of them are living or working. Do you understand all of those conditions of release?
Yes, Your Honor.
Your next court date is going to be March 31st at 1:30 in the afternoon. That's a preliminary hearing. That court date may or may not occur, but you are responsible for showing up at all future court dates. And if you fail to appear, they could issue a warrant for your arrest. Do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear?
Yes, Your Honor.
If you remain in custody, the jail will make sure that you get transported for your next hearing. But if you do get released, it's important that you stay in contact with your attorney. You're all done.
Okay.
You're all done for today.
Thank you.
Someone from that legal.
Okay. Thank you.
Owen? Owen?
How you doing, sir?
Good area.
Hi, tell me your name.
James Alwyn?
Mr. Alwyn, you are here today on charges of possession of dangerous drug and possession of drug paraphernalia. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. I'm going to appoint the legal advocate's office to represent you today on these charges. You do have an attorney seated with you. This is the time for your initial appearance where we talk about conditions of release. I've had an opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services. That report tells me a little bit about you and the circumstances. It also told me, Mr. Alwyn, that you have a DOC hold. So with that hold, regardless of what I do here today, you're going to continue to remain in custody. I've had a chance to review information provided by the state, and they have requested a $2,500 cash or secured bond. That is my inclination in light of the DOC hold. Mr. Alwyn is also eligible for steps consideration, so I can review that with him as well. Mr. Poston, is there anything else that you want?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Bond, did you want to? Mr. Alwyn?
Yes, ma'am.
Let me talk to you about what we refer to as the steps hearing. So based on the nature of these new charges, you may be eligible to participate in substance abuse services. If you agree to do that, I can set a hearing to see whether or not you're eligible. That could be difficult if your parole gets violated and you end up going back to DOC, but depending upon what happens with that, this program, if you agree to participate, means you stay in contact with pretrial services if you get released, and then you also would be participating in substance abuse treatment. If you successfully complete the treatment program that's outlined for you, then not go forward with these felony charges. So the first step is seeing if you qualify, and if you'd like to participate, I can give you a hearing next week to see whether or not you're eligible. Would you like to do that?
That would be great. I've only got maybe about a month's time back in DOC. Is that going to affect it? I mean, if I went back for a month, could I still be eligible in the STEP program after that? Or
so that's
is
something,
that possible?
talk with your attorney about that. So like I said, Mr. Bond's not your attorney, but he does handle the steps hearings and he's very familiar with how that process works. So I'm going to set a hearing for you next week, March 27th at 9 a.m. That's going to be in front of Judge Hampton. You'll very likely still be in custody, and so they'll transport you to her courtroom that day. You'll have your attorney from the legal advocate's office that will be there, as well as pretrial services and service providers in our community. If you do qualify and the state finds that you're eligible to participate, I would talk with Judge Hampton about the things you just told me, that you are interested in this, even if you have to do it after you get out of DOC. I don't know what the state's willing to do, but it's certainly worth mentioning at that hearing.
Okay, appreciate it.
If you do get released, you will be released to pretrial services. You have to participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct. You can't have any alcohol, obviously no illegal drugs, and no firearms while the case is going on. Your next hearing for these charges is going to be a preliminary hearing on March 31st at 1:30. Again, the steps hearing could affect that, but for now, that's the next point in time in which the state has to either file formal charges or not. It's important you stay in contact with your attorney because that preliminary hearing date may or may not occur, but you're responsible for showing up at all future hearings. And if you fail to appear, a warrant can issue for your arrest. Do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear?
Absolutely.
All right, you're all done for today, sir.
So what we did today keeps these options open for you. It doesn't guarantee that you're gonna get approved to go into this diversion. That's pretty, that's so this applicant. Attorneys make, but yeah, that would. I appreciate that. Thank you. Good luck. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Barnett?
Thank you, sir.
Hi, tell me your name.
Randall Barnett.
Mr. Barnett, you are here today on felony charges involving possession of a dangerous drug, possession of a narcotic drug, and possession of drug paraphernalia. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. I am going to appoint the Public Defender's Office to represent you today, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here today. I've had an opportunity to review some information provided by pretrial services on this. They do tell me that you are either on federal probation or parole. Jail, are you showing any holds at this time? All right. So, Mr. Barnett, the other opportunity that you have, given the nature of these charges, is to participate in what we refer to as a pre-indictment diversion program. Essentially, if you want to receive substance abuse treatment and you're willing to attend multiple sessions of that and stay in contact with an agency of the court, if you complete that program, then the state may not go forward with these felony charges. If you complete the program, they won't. Is that something that you're interested in?
Yes.
All right. With that, I am inclined to release you to pretrial services. That does also appear to be the state's recommendation. You obviously, probation, parole, whatever it is with the feds, you're going to get released on this case later today. You'll want to make sure you check in with your probation or parole officer as soon as you get released today and let them know what's going on. Your next hearing is going to be next week, March 27th at 9 a.m. That's going to be your, what we refer to as a steps hearing. It's the treatment court. And you need to show up on the 3rd floor of Superior Court. You're going to see Judge Hampton. At that hearing, you'll find out if you are in fact eligible to participate. You'll have an opportunity to meet with your attorney from the Public Defender's Office. They'll review the contract with you, essentially letting you know the terms of the program. You'll also meet pretrial services, and there'll be substance abuse treatment providers from our community that will be there so you can get connected with services in the courtroom.
All right.
Your next court date after that to see whether or not these charges will go forward is March 31st at 1:30. That's a preliminary hearing. That court date may or may not occur, but you will be responsible for showing up at all future court dates. And if you fail to appear, a warrant could issue for your arrest. Since you're being released, it's going to be important that you stay in contact with your attorney in case that date changes. Do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear?
Yes, ma'am.
Right, you're all done for today.
Hold that tomorrow. You should have a decided with an attorney. They can tell you what's going on. What we've done today keeps all that diversion option open for you. The prosecutors still have to make a decision whether they're going to offer that to you before that 27th hearing. I'll tell you for the picture.
I shall call this back to you.
Yeah, so, okay, thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Blackwell. Thank you. Blackwell?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Hi, tell me your name.
Marcelino Jesus Blackwell.
Mr. Blackwell, you are here today on 2 charges involving aggravated DUI. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney in this matter. I'm going to appoint the Public Defender's Office to represent you, and you do have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here today. We're here to discuss your conditions of release. I've had an opportunity to review some information provided by pretrial services. It does tell me that you're on probation in a Tucson City Court matter as well. I'm not hearing anything related to that case today. We're here to talk solely about the aggravated DUI charges. I've had an opportunity to review information provided by the state on whether or not they want to have you held and what they want your conditions to be. The state is asking for a $10,000 bond and release to pretrial if you post that bond. Mr. Poston, that is my inclination. Did you want to be heard further?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Bond.
Your Honor, my indication or my information, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was gonna mention that to the judge. His only criminal history is pending misdemeanor DUI at this point. He has housing in town. He is full-time employed. Your Honor, I was advised by the jail, it looks like there's a hold in place. If that is accurate, I would just ask the court to consider a much lower bond than 2,500.
Jail, what do you show? Is it a city court hold?
Adult probation holds.
It's what?
Adult probation.
Okay. All right. I am going to impose a $10,000 bond on this matter. That's going to be cash or secured. If you do post that bond, Mr. Blackwell, then you're going to be released to pretrial services. If you get released to pretrial, you have to participate in any monitoring or treatment that they direct. You will be monitored since this is an alcohol offense, so they're going to be testing you. You do have to participate in that. You are not allowed to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs. You may not drive without a valid license, and you can't have any firearms while this case is going on. Your next hearing is going to be March 31st at 1:30 in the afternoon. That's a preliminary hearing. That court date may or may not occur, but you are responsible for showing up at all future court dates. And if you fail to appear, a warrant could issue for your arrest. Do you understand all of the conditions I've imposed today?
Yes.
Do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear for your hearing?
Yes.
If you stay in custody, they'll transport you to your next hearing. But if you do postpone and get released, you need to stay in touch with your attorney so that you don't miss any future court dates. You're all done for today, Mr. Blackwell.
Get out, your attorney is involved, state jail, they'll be out. Well, yeah, it's through a bail bond agency. That's usually the case. This first. Or answered by the second.
Hi, tell me your full name.
Christopher.
You are here today, Mr. Christopher, on charges of possession of a narcotic drug and possession of drug paraphernalia. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney in this matter. Today, I'm appointing the Public Defender's Office to represent you, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here today. I've had an opportunity to review some information provided by pretrial services. It tells me that you also have a failure to appear warrant out of Pima County Superior Court. So you're going to be held on that matter regardless of what we do here today. I've had the opportunity to review.
Squashing more foot. That's my foot. It's the Superior Court match. So I was because I was here, and I let them. I thought there's no one here personally that would correspond with my open pretender, and I was supposed to go to the end with this, and then I started talking to my lawyer about it, and then we're scared to the church. But
Okay, well then that warrant is still in place.
yeah, because I was taking it here.
So, Mr.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. So, Mr. Christopher, I heard what you were telling your attorney about having court today to try to get the warrant quashed, but the reality is it was not quashed. And so, and I'm telling you, I'm not seeing you on that warrant. You have to be seen in Superior Court by the judge on that warrant. So you're going to be held on that. Whatever I do on this case in terms of your conditions of release is separate from that. So these are new drug charges that you're being held on. Pretrial services tells me that based on the nature of the offenses, you would be eligible to participate in a pre-indictment diversion program. However, in reviewing the state's information, it looks like they are not going to find that you are eligible to participate in that program. Is that correct, Mr. Poston?
It is.
So I'm not going to enter a steps review hearing date. Mr. Bond, you can certainly talk with the prosecutor's office if someone from your office thinks that it is appropriate, but I'm not going to set that hearing at this time. They are asking for a $2,500 cash or secured bond in light of the felony hold. That is my inclination. Did you need to be heard further, Mr. Poston?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Bond?
Your Honor, I don't believe I have information on the existing Superior Court hold. Just based on the nature of these charges, I would ask for a minimal bond be put in place.
I know, there's no bond, anything, no money out of it.
Okay.
But this system.
All right, I am going to impose a bond today in the amount of $2,500. That's going to be cash or secured. If you post that bond on this case, you'll be released to pretrial services. You're going to have to participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct. You can't have any alcohol or illegal drugs, and you're not allowed to have any firearms while this case is going on. Your next court date in this case, Mr. Christopher, is going to be March 31st at 1:30. That's a preliminary hearing. That court date may or may not occur, but you're going to be responsible for showing up at all future court dates, or they could issue a warrant for your arrest. Do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear for your next court date?
Yep.
And do you understand the conditions of release that I've imposed here today?
Yep.
You're all done.
Thank you.
You're all done for today.
Thank you.
Hey. Is Dave? Yes, your shirt. You can do it.
Hi, ma'am. Tell me your full name.
Kayla Day.
Miss Day, you are here on new felony charges for narcotic drug possession and dangerous drug possession and possession of drug paraphernalia. We're also here to talk about a misdemeanor DUI case. I'm going to do that after we take care of your felony cases. You do have the right to remain silent on all of the charges here today. Anything you say can and will be used against you. I'm going to appoint an attorney for you on the felony matters. You are entitled to that attorney. Today, I'm appointing the public defender's office to represent you, and you do have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here today. We're here to talk about your conditions of release on that case. I've had an opportunity to review some information provided by pretrial services. Their report tells me, based on the nature of the offenses, you would be eligible for a diversion program for substance abuse. I have reviewed the state's recommendation, and they're also indicating that they do not intend to have you participate in that program, or that you're not eligible. Is that correct, Mr. Poston?
It is.
All right. So I am not going to provide the date for that hearing at this time. The state is asking for a $5,000 bond on this matter. Mr. Poston, did you want to be heard further?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Bond, did you want to be heard on conditions in this matter?
Your Honor, again, the information I have to Ms. Day is that any prior criminal history she has is remote. These offenses, but for the state's administrative decision, would have been diversion eligible. I would ask that she be considered for release to pretrial, or a very minimal bond be imposed.
Have full-time job, you know, 5 years are in.
She
I'm
has,
not business like.
she has employment waiting out in the community for her, Your Honor.
All right.
Your Honor, let me double check on the steps eligibility.
I am going to release you, Ms. Day, to pretrial services today on this case. So while the state's go ahead, Mr. Poston.
State would revise, she is steps eligible.
All right. So
Thank you.
what that means, Ms. Day, for you is, if you would like to participate in substance abuse treatment, then if you complete a program that's being offered, it's a pre-indictment diversion program, the state would not go forward with these felony charges. Is that something you're interested in participating in?
Very good.
Very good. I did DTAP 10 years ago, so. I did DTAP 10 years ago. Continue my life.
Did I hear you say you're in DTAP?
Yes.
So
Change my life.
who was your judge in DTAP? Do you remember?
McKinley.
Okay. There's a new judge there now. Are we willing to waive time for the PH, Mr. Bond?
Yes, Your Honor.
Right.
That gives you the opportunity to go through this diversion again. So.
All right. So Ms. Day, your next hearing is going to be next week, March 27th at 9 o'clock in the morning. That's going to be on the 3rd floor of Superior Court in front of Judge Hampton. That's to find out whether or not you are in fact eligible to participate in this pre-indictment diversion program. At that hearing, you're going to meet with your attorney from the public defender's office. Pretrial services will be there as well, because you have to stay in contact with that agency. And you also are going to have the opportunity to meet with substance abuse treatment providers in our community. They will be present so you can get connected with services. It's really important that you make that court date and time if you want to participate. Because I am releasing you to pretrial services today, you do have to stay in contact with them, participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct. You're not allowed to have any alcohol, no illegal drugs, and you can't have any firearms while this case is going on. Do you understand all of those conditions of release?
Yes, Your Honor.
And then your next court date after the one you have to appear at next week, if for some reason you're not eligible for the pre-indictment diversion program, the next court date is going to be May 5th at 1:30. I asked your attorney if he was willing to waive time for you. Normally, the state would have 20 days to go forward with an indictment in your case, but because we're giving you the opportunity to participate in steps, we're going to extend that out to a 45-day period. And so that's why we have that March 5th date for your preliminary hearing. That date may or may not occur, but it's going to be really important that you stay in contact with your attorney so you don't miss any future court dates. If you do miss court dates, they can issue a warrant for your arrest. Do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear?
Yes, Your Honor.
Right. So we do have that justice court matter that we also need to address here today. And it does look like that is a DUI charge. Again, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say kind of will be used against you. I am going to release you on your promise to appear on that case as well. Your next court date is going to be an arraignment on March 31st at 8:30 in the morning at Pima County Justice Court. You are not to drive without a valid license, don't have any alcohol or illegal drugs. Those are your conditions on that case. Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
And if you do fail to appear for that hearing on March 31st at 8:30, they can issue a warrant for your arrest. Do you understand that as well?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you are all done for today, Miss Day.
As soon as you get up here, you're up 25, so you call me from first thing tomorrow. All the defender's office tomorrow, Monday, heavy cases, some people lawyer, something's going on.
I said, keep going.
Jenkins, Billy?
Sorry, but
Hi, tell me your full name.
Dylan Jenkins.
Mr. Jenkins, you were here today on charges of misconduct involving a weapon and possession of dangerous drugs. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. We also have a Tucson City Court matter we need to talk about. I'm going to review the felonies with you first. On the felony matters, you do have the right to an attorney. I'm going to appoint the public defender's office to represent you, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here today. I've had an opportunity to review some information provided by pretrial services, tells me a little bit about you and the circumstances of the offense. I've also had a chance to review the state's recommendation. They're asking that you be held on a $5,000 bond and released to pretrial. Mr. Poston, do you have anything to add?
It's a 5 and a 4, Your Honor. Otherwise, state submits on the record.
Mr. Bond, did you want to be heard on condition?
yes, Your Honor, it looks like Mr. Jenkins's only prior criminal history is a decade old at this point, a single felony conviction. He has stable residence and employment waiting here in town. As far as I read in the interim, it did not seem that the gun was ever brandished. It was just simply in a backpack or a bag of some kind. So this was not a violent incident. I would ask that he be released to pretrial services.
So, Mr. Jenkins, I am going to release you to pretrial services today. What that means is you have to stay in contact with that agency. You are not allowed, sir, Ms. I need you to pay attention, okay? I need you to participate in any monitoring or treatment that pretrial services orders you to. You're not allowed to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs, and you are not allowed to have any guns at all near you at any time for any reason. Your next court date is going to be April 9th at 1:30. That's a preliminary hearing. That court date may or may not occur, but you're going to be responsible for showing up at all future court dates. And if you fail to appear, a warrant could issue for your arrest. Because you're going to be out of custody, it's going to be important that you stay in contact with your attorney so that you don't miss any future court dates. Do you understand?
Yes, yes, Your Honor.
Now we're going to talk about your Tucson City Court case. It looks like there is a warrant for drug paraphernalia and displaying a fictitious plate. I am going to release you on your promise to appear on that case as well. Your next court date in that matter is going to be April 21st at 9 a.m. in front of Judge Maldonado. This matter is not going to go away, so you do have to show up and get it taken care of. Do you understand?
Yes, I do.
If you fail to appear, Tucson City Court is going to issue another warrant for your arrest. Do you understand that as well?
Yes, Your Honor.
Right, Mr. Jenkins, you're all done for today. Make sure you make all your.
Refill services is first call I'm gonna make. I'm gonna an animal today. So first thing tomorrow. I'm actually today. And that's an for your lawyer.
All right, thank you.
Martinez, Damien?
Hi, sir. Tell me your name.
Martinez.
Mr. Martinez. Looks like you're here on multiple matters today. There is an FW matter for ag assault, deadly weapon, dangerous instrument, and that's 4 counts. And it looks like that warrant is out of Pima County Justice Court. You're also here on a couple of other misdemeanor warrants out of Pima County Justice Court. Looks like for criminal damage. And another couple charges related to disorderly conduct and threats, and those are domestic violence offenses. You do have the right to remain silent on all of these charges here today. Anything you say can and will be used against you. On the felony matters, you do have the right to an attorney. I'm going to appoint the public defender's office to represent you, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here today. I've had the opportunity to review some information provided by pretrial services. It tells me a little bit about you and the circumstances of the offense. I've also had a chance to review the information provided by the state. Mr. Poston, I see that you're asking for a no bond, but the Justice Court warrant, he's not actually, I don't have information that he's on release on that case unless you show something I don't. So the warrant is active. And we
In
can.
that case, Your Honor, $250,000. This person took issue with some people who were minding their own business, driving down a street. The defendant decided to tailgate them on his motorcycle, come up on the side, flip them off, then decided, make a cutthroat motion, not flip them off. He then cut off and blocked the victims, then produced a firearm and pointed at them. Subsequent contact with law enforcement the defendant had at that point established that he matched the description that the defendants gave when they reported the incident to the police. He has a history of violence. He drew a weapon on somebody for no apparent reason, and that was quite a few people in that vehicle. $250,000. This man is a danger.
So, Mr. Bond, I do actually, the amount on the bond is $50,000. So that is the bond that I'm inclined to impose on that matter. Did you want to be heard further?
You're without further information with that being the requested amount, no.
All right. So, Mr. Martinez, I am going to impose the bond amount on the warrant. It is a cash or secured bond amount of $50,000. If you do post that bond, then you'd be released to pretrial services. If you get released, you have to participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct. You can't have any alcohol or illegal drugs, and you're not allowed to have any firearms. You can't have any contact with the victims, and don't return to the incident location. Your next court date for this matter is going to be March 31st at 1:30 in the afternoon. That's going to be a preliminary hearing. That court date may or may not occur, but you're responsible for showing up at all future. If you fail to appear, they could issue a warrant for your arrest. Do you understand your conditions of release in this felony case, Mr. Martinez?
Yes, ma'am.
And
Yes, Your Honor.
do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear in that case?
Yes, Your Honor.
Let's deal with the warrant that you have out of Justice Court. Looks like it's a criminal damage case. I'm going to release you on that one. Basically, what that means is that I'm going to give you some future court dates. And if you're still in custody on the felony matter, sir, and that doesn't change, then you're going to be appearing via video, much like you're doing here today, so that you can get that justice court matter resolved. But if you do get released, you're going to have to show up at these future court dates. And you're going to have probably 2 separate ones. But let me see what they did for you here in just a second. All right, so I'm releasing you on the criminal damage. Your next court date, and that one's going to be April 9th at 10:30 in the morning, and that's going to be in front of Judge Pesquera. If you do get released, just do not return to the incident location where the criminal damage occurred. That's where the victims are, and you can't have any contact with them. And then on the domestic violence case, I am going to release you on that matter as well. Your next court date on that matter is actually going to be March 31st at 10:30 in the morning. And again, if you're in custody, you'll appear via video. Give me just one moment to review something on that case. All right, so the DV case, Mr. Martinez, your dad is the victim in that one. So if you do get released, you're not allowed to have any contact with your father. Don't go back to anywhere near where he is living or working, and commit no acts of domestic violence. Do you understand? Yes.
Okay. My payees and our social security, so I'm not supposed to get my social security checks if he's my payee. Does he get to collect them and just keep them, and or what? Because
The attorney from public defender's get a separate pay. Thank you. Well.
So it sounds like Mr. Bond talked with you about that. So when I reviewed the pretrial services report, sir, it does look like your father indicated that he did not want to have future contact with you, and I'm going to honor his wish in that case. So talk with your attorney about that, and know that that no contact order, Mr. Martinez, does apply to you while you remain in custody. I know you're going to be given access to phones, tablets, and things. You can't have any contact with him even while you're in jail. Do you understand all of that?
Yes.
Right. And same thing, if for some reason you do get released on your felony case, make sure you show up to court or they'll issue warrants for you. You're all done for today, Mr. Martinez.
Nestra?
Hi, tell me your name.
Nestra?
Mr. Nestra, you are here today on charges of possession of drug paraphernalia. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. I'm going to appoint the public defender's office to represent you, and you do have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here today. I've had an opportunity to review some information, as I've said, from pretrial services. Tells me a little bit about you and the circumstances of the offense. Also had a chance to review the state's recommendation. In looking at pretrial, it tells me that you have a probation hold. So what that means, Mr. Nestra, is that regardless of what I do on this case today, you're going to be held until you can be seen by the judge for your probation matter. With that, I am inclined to impose a minimal bond on this case of $250 cash or secured, so that there's time credit and release to pretrial. Does either party need to be heard further?
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
All right, so Mr. Nestra, on this case, I am going to impose a $250 cash or secured bond. If you post that bond, then you'll be released to pretrial services. Again, you have to be seen on your felony probation matter before you'll be eligible in this case. It does look like you may be eligible to participate in a diversion program. If you want to participate in substance abuse treatment, then the state would not go forward with this paraphernalia charge against you if you successfully do that. Is that something you're interested in?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So what I'm going to do is give you a court date for that. That's going to be next week, March 27th at 9 a.m. You're still in custody on your probation matter. You're going to be transported to Judge Hampton's courtroom. But if you get released on your probation matter, you need to show up March 27th at 9 a.m., third floor, Superior Court in front of Judge Hampton to see if you're eligible for that program. At that time, you'll meet with your attorney from the Public Defender's Office. Pretrial Services will be there. That's the agency you're going to have to maintain contact with. And they also have substance abuse treatment providers from our community that are present in the courtroom so you can get connected with services. If you do get released, you do have to participate in any monitoring or treatment that pretrial requires. You're not allowed to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs, and you can't have any firearms while these cases are going on. Do you understand all those conditions of release?
Yes.
Your next court date after that diversion hearing potential date for next week is going to be March 31st at 1:30. That's what's called a preliminary hearing. That court date may or may not occur, but you're responsible for showing up at all future court dates. And if you fail to appear, court can issue a warrant for your arrest. If you stay in custody, the jail will transport you to your next court dates. But if you get released, you are expected to appear on your own. Do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear?
Yes.
All right, you're all done for today.
All right, someone's with the PD's office will be in touch with you over the next few days. Help you. Victor Guyen. Victor Guyen.
When, Your Honor? Or for the jail?
It's Victor Nguyen. Victor Nguyen. So you Mr. Wynn?
Hey, sir, tell me your full name.
Victor Wynn.
Mr. Wen, you were here today on a charge of possession of a dangerous drug. It is a felony offense. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney in this matter. I am going to appoint the Public Defender's Office to represent you, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here today. I've had an opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services, tells me a little bit about you, as well as the circumstances of the offense. Because of the nature of the offense, you may be eligible to participate in a pre-indictment diversion program. If you would like to participate in substance abuse treatment and you successfully complete that program, the state would not go forward with these felony charges. Is that something that you're interested in doing?
Yes.
All right. So with that, I am inclined to release Mr. Wen to pretrial services with some conditions. Does either party need to be heard further on that?
No, Judge.
No, Your Honor.
So, Mr. Wen, I'm going to release you today to the custody of pretrial services. You do have to stay in touch with that agency on a regular basis, participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct. You are not allowed to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs. You're also not allowed to drive without a valid license. You do not have a valid license. You may not drive at all. You're also not allowed to have any firearms while this case is going on. The hearing to see whether or not you're eligible to participate in this pre-indictment diversion program is going to be next week, March 27th at 9 a.m. You have to show up at that hearing if you want to get a chance to participate. If you don't show up, the state's going to go forward with these felony charges against you. At that hearing, you're going to have an opportunity to meet with your attorney, treatment providers, and also pretrial services. So make sure you show up. Are we willing to waive time for the PH, Mr. Bond?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. So what I just asked your attorney, Mr. Wen, is normally the state would have 20 days to go forward with an indictment in your matter. Because we're giving you the opportunity to participate in the pre-indictment diversion program, we're going to extend that out to 45 days. So the court hearing next week, you need to show up at, but the preliminary hearing date in your case is going to be May 5th at 1:30 in the afternoon. That hearing may or may not occur. A lot of that's going to depend on what happens next week for the pre-indictment diversion program, but you are responsible for showing up at all future court dates. And if you fail to appear, a warrant could issue for your arrest. Do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear?
Yes, I do.
Right, you're all done for today.
That's the first phone call you make. Pre-trial service, you should check in with them. Get out after 5, call first thing tomorrow morning. That's the lawyer's office. It's going to represent you. They can explain all these different dates. Call them tomorrow or Monday. Okay. All right, you guys are Oatman. There was a
Hang on, folks. I'm gonna talk to the clerk here about something. Give me just a minute. And then I think maybe Nestra, usually use that one. So that's the one I'll need to look at. I mean, if you have everything on, so you're able to change it. And then on when it was on the process. That's really that's what I screwed up on that. And then also the PH date is not that I don't think for him either. It should be 21st. I can look at it when we're all done. I know, but like, you know, that obviously that messes up. So that's what happened. All right. Tell me your name, sir. What's your middle name, Mr. Oatman?
William.
All right. You are here today on felony charges involving aggravated DUI and criminal damage. You do have the right to remain silent on these charges. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney on this matter. I am going to appoint the public defender's office to represent you, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here today. Also looks like you have another matter out of Pima County Justice Court, or maybe they're just separated. Hang on a second. So it looks like the aggravated DUI criminal damage charges are separated out.
Yeah.
The misdemeanor driving without a valid license we'll have to talk about next. We're going to talk about the felony case first and conditions of release. That's what we're here to discuss, Mr. Oatman. I've had the opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services that tells me a little bit about you and the circumstances of the offense. I've also had an opportunity to review the state's recommendation. They're asking for a $7,500 bond with release to pretrial services. Mr. Poston, given the circumstances, the history, and the information I have, I'm at a $20,000 cash or secured bond today. Did you?
Very good, Your Honor.
Further?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Bond.
Your Honor, I would first note that Mr. Oatman's only criminal felony history is remote. He has advised me, just as we've been sitting here, that he has he has employment. He works out in the community, and that's waiting for him. He is involved in the sale of a home, and I guess the closing is in 1 week. He also has a short-term rental he has been living in. The rental, I guess, expires within a week, and all his belongings are there at that residence. He also has been involved in treatment for substance and alcohol use issues through Community Bridges for a period of time. And I think he's going at least every other week, twice a month.
Every week.
Every week he's going weekly for help in there, and that would continue if released, Your Honor.
Mr. Oatman, I'm gonna hold you on a bond of $10,000 today. That bond is cash or secured. If you post that bond, then you'd be released to pretrial services. If you do post the bond and you get released, you are going to be required to participate in monitoring or treatment that they direct. This is an alcohol-related offense. You will have to do alcohol monitoring and testing. You are not allowed to have any alcohol or illegal drugs. You are not allowed to drive without a valid license. You can't have any firearms while this case is going on. You're not to have any contact with the victims in this case, and don't go near the incident location. Do you understand all of those conditions of release?
Yes.
Your next court date on this matter is going to be March 31st at 1:30 in the afternoon. That is a preliminary hearing. That court date may or may not occur, but you're going to be responsible for showing up at all future court dates. And if you fail to appear, they can issue a warrant for your arrest. Do you understand that as well?
Yes.
We also need to deal with the misdemeanor matter that.
Your Honor, I'm sorry to interrupt. Did you appoint counsel?
Yes, Public Defender's Office.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
No, I may have missed it too. So you do have the Public Defender's Office representing in the felony matter. On the misdemeanor matter, Mr. Oatman.
Just asked for her. She said no.
I haven't.
So,
What's that? Did you ask me a question?
No, hang on, Mr. Oatman. There's some confusion with the way in which the paperwork was done in your case, because out of your felony DUI that we just talked about, there's another justice court matter. So give me a minute to talk to the clerk and I'll be right back with you. I'm not going to dismiss it. No, I just didn't know. Yeah, we can get that. Yeah, she used to. If you want to give me a different date now, I can do that too. But I just, that'll be how. All right. So, Mr. Oatman, the confusion does seem to be that the citation that you receive for the felony matters also has a citation for what is essentially a civil traffic violation. But it's a separate court date that you're going to have to appear for in justice court. So if you're in custody, the jail will make sure that you appear via video for the court date. Because it's a civil matter, I'm not sure how that's going to work. But if you do get released on your felony case, I'm going to give you an additional court date today. So on that misdemeanor matter, I am going to release you on your promise to appear. Your next court date is going to be March 31st at 8:30 in the morning. And that will again be at Pima County Justice Court. They may adjust the judge that you're scheduled to see that day, because it does appear that this is a civil matter, not a criminal matter. But until that gets sorted out in the future, I'm just going to give you a court date and let justice court sort that out. All right. All right, so just make sure you show up for your court dates if you get released. You're all done for today, Mr. Oatman.
But you still have a question.
Yep.
What is that? You'll want to get in touch with someone on the other side. Get in touch with the bail bond agency and make arrangements.
All from here.
The bail bond agencies, I don't believe so. Not really sure. Usually seems someone on the outside has, like.
So that would require $1,000.
At least at possibly additional fees plus full claim.
Okay. But I can't contact
I don't know if it's in or not, to be quite honest, sir. I'm really not sure if we're able to get through on the phone lines here.
Oh, yeah.
Questions?
Hi, tell me your name.
Nicholas Abola.
Mr. Abola, is your middle name Drake?
Yes.
And are you a junior?
Yes.
All right. You are here today on felony charges involving armed robbery, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, and aggravated assault. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney in this matter. Today, I'm appointing the Public Defender's Office to represent you, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here today. I've had an opportunity to review some information provided by pretrial services. It tells the court a little bit about you, the circumstances of the offense. I've also had a chance to review the state's recommendation as to conditions of release. That's what we're here to discuss today. The state is asking for a $60,000 bond. Mr. Poston, I am inclined to impose a $50,000 cash or secured bond with release to pretrial. Did you want to be heard further?
Your Honor.
Mr. Bond, your recommendation?
Your Honor, it appears that Mr. Malo has no prior criminal or at least no prior felony history. He would have residence that, as far as I understand, is completely separate from any alleged victim in this case. I would ask the court to consider either a release to pretrial or a much lower than $50,000 bond with instructions to have no contact with any alleged victims. So.
Mr. Abola, I am going to hold you today on a bond of $50,000. That is cash or secured. If you do post that bond, then you can be released to pretrial services. You'll be ordered to participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct. You're not allowed to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs, and you are not allowed to have any firearms. Don't have any contact with the victims in this case. Do not go anywhere near where they are living or working or the incident location. Do you understand all those conditions of release?
Yes, Your Honor.
Your next court date is going to be March 31st at 1:30 in the afternoon. That's a preliminary hearing. That court date may or may not occur, but you're going to be responsible for showing up at all future court dates. And if you fail to appear, they could issue a warrant for your arrest. Do you understand that as well?
Absolutely.
All right. If you stay in custody, the jail will transport for you for your next hearing. But if you post bond, stay in touch with your attorney so you don't miss your court dates. You're all done for today.
Someone from our office. See you next few days.
He's already.
I don't know the name right now. They will assign it to someone within our office. All right, take us. Show up.
Hi, tell me your full name.
Nino, show up.
Mr. Ochoa, you are here today on a charge of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon and disorderly conduct with a weapon. These are felony offenses. They are domestic violence related. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney. In this matter, I am going to appoint the Public Defender's Office to represent you, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here today. I've had an opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services, tells me a little bit about you and also the circumstances of the offense. We're here to talk about conditions of release today. I've had the opportunity to review the state's recommendation. They're asking for a $75,000 bond plus release to pretrial. Mr. Poston, I'm at a $25,000 cash or secured bond release to pretrial and no victim contact. Did you want to be heard?
Very well, Your Honor.
Anything?
Very well, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Bond?
Point, Your Honor, he is employed and that job may be at risk if he remains in jail for an extended period of time. And he does have housing here in town. As far as I understand, it would be separate from any alleged victim case. So we would ask for either a pretrial service release or a much, much lower bond.
Your Honor.
Mr. Poston?
NAFCARE has the ability to provide whatever medical treatment is deemed necessary under the circumstances. This person pulled a gun, allegedly, on his sister, brother-in-law in the presence of their 3 children. The state would encourage the court to stick with its initial decision of a $25,000 bond.
I am going to impose a slightly lower bond. I am going to call cash or secured bond and release to pretrial services if you post that bond, Mr. Ochoa. You are required to participate in any monitoring or treatment pretrial services directs. You're not allowed to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs, and you are not allowed to possess any firearms. To the extent that you have any other firearms in your home, you do need to surrender those to law enforcement immediately upon your release. You can talk with your attorney about how to do that. You're not allowed to have any contact with the victims in this case. Do not go anywhere near where they are living or working. Also, don't return to the incident location. Do you understand all of those conditions of release?
Yes, ma'am.
Your next court date is going to be March 31st at 1:30. That's a preliminary hearing. That court date may or may not occur, but you're responsible for showing up at all future court dates. And if you fail to appear, they could issue a warrant for your arrest. Do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear?
Yes, ma'am.
You're all done for today.
Jail 2 days. I don't know. They did just call in. Or with what's going on, showing that court date.
Yeah, Parley.
Yeah. So
Hey, sir, tell me your name.
Mark Parley.
Mr. Parley, you are here today on charges of ag assault with a dangerous instrument and aggravated assault, temporary but substantial injury. You do have the right to remain silent on those charges. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney on this matter. These are felony cases. I'm appointing the public defender's office to represent you here today, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of the proceedings. We're here to talk about your conditions of release on this matter. I've had an opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services. It tells me a little bit about you and also the circumstances of the offense. I've also had an opportunity to review the state's recommendation as to your conditions of release. They're asking for a $500,000 bond with release to pretrial services. Mr. Poston, I'm at a $50,000 cash or secured bond on this matter and release to pretrial.
Your Honor, this person was apparently involved in a verbal disagreement with somebody and then decided to escalate by going to his car, grabbing a tire iron and beating the person over the head such that they suffered subdural hematoma, skull fractures, and lost their eye. This victim is now without one of their eyes over a verbal argument that the defendant decided to escalate and beat him over the head with a tire iron. He lost his eye, Your Honor. This person is dangerous.
Mr. Bond?
Your Honor, I note that Mr. Parley has no violent felony convictions in his past. He has a couple of nonviolent that, again, are multiple years old at this point. I don't have the interim open right in front of me, Judge, but my recollection was the other individual had struck Mr. Parley. I don't necessarily have enough facts to argue self-defense or justification, but it was more, I think, than just simply a verbal offense. I would simply ask the court to consider a much, much lower bond than $50,000 based on Mr. Parley's lack of any similar history.
I am going to impose a $50,000 bond in this matter. I am going to impose it as a cash only, not secured. If you do post that $50,000 bond, Mr. Parley, then you'd be released to pretrial services. If you do get released, you have to participate in any monitoring or treatment as directed by pretrial. You're not allowed to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs, and you may not have any firearms or weapons. You're not allowed to have any contact with a victim in this case. Don't go anywhere near where that person is living or working, and do not return to the incident location. Do you understand those conditions of release?
Yes.
Your next court date is going to be March 31st at 1:30 in the afternoon. That's a preliminary hearing. That court date may or may not occur, but you're responsible for showing up at all future court dates. And if you fail to appear, they could issue a warrant for your arrest. Do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear?
Yes, I do.
If you stay in custody, Mr. Parley, the jail will transport you to your next hearings. But if you do get released, it's important that you stay in contact with your attorney so you don't miss your future court dates. You're all done for today.
Someone from mine, here, touch that, here, in contact. Not, you would not get released, it's $50,000 bond that the judge needs to add only. So it can be paid through a bail bond agency, so they request up $50,000 in cash from the bond you have. All right, I think.
Hi, tell me your name.
Ashley Tyler Stradick.
Mr. Strazik, you are here today on multiple matters. The first is a felony matter involving dangerous drug possession and drug paraphernalia. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney on this matter. I'm going to appoint the public defender's office to represent you, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here today. We have some other matters we're going to need to discuss. In my review of some information from pretrial services, it does tell me that you have a probation warrant out of Pinal County for a felony case. So regardless of what I do here today, you are going to be held on that warrant. The information also tells me that you may be eligible to participate in substance abuse program. It's a pre-indictment diversion program for these personal possession drug offenses. If you're interested in that, we can set a court date for you next week to see if you're eligible. Is that something you'd like to do?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, Your Honor.
It's very good.
So with that, counsel, I am inclined to impose a $2,500 cash or secured bond release to pretrial. Does anyone need to be heard further on the felony case?
No, Judge.
Mr.
Your
Malo?
Honor, based on my client's indigency, I might ask the court to just consider a lower financial amount. I think he would remain in custody regardless.
He has a lot of other failures to appear and things going on. So I am going to impose the $2,500 cash or secured bond. Your next court date is actually going to be next week. It's going to be March 27th at 9 o'clock in the morning. And that's going to be the time for you to find out if you're eligible to participate in this pre-indictment diversion program. If you are eligible, you'll be transported there by the jail. You're going to see Judge Hampton on that day. Your attorney will be there, pretrial services will be there, and you'll also have the opportunity to meet with substance abuse treatment providers from our community to see if we can get you connected with services if you qualify for the program. If you do end up getting released on this case and post the bond and your other matters get resolved, then you have to participate in any monitoring or treatment pretrial services directs. You're not allowed to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs, and you can't have any firearms while this case is going on. The next court date on the drug charges, if you are not eligible to participate in the diversion program, is going to be March 31st at 1:30. That's a preliminary hearing. That court date may or may not occur, but you're responsible for showing up at all future court dates. And if you fail to appear, they could issue a warrant for your arrest. Do you understand that, sir?
Yes, yes, Your Honor.
All right. So the next case we're going to talk about is a warrant out of Pima County Justice Court, and that is for drug paraphernalia possession. I'm going to release you on that case just so that if you get your felony matter resolved, you're not being held on that one. But I am going to release you. If you remain in custody, the jail is going to make sure that you are seen via video, much like you're doing here today. So the next court date for your justice court matter is going to be April 8th at 10:30 in the morning. When you ultimately get released, they're going to give you copies of your paperwork, and it's going to have all these court dates on it. And then the other matter through justice court is a shoplifting case. Same thing. I'm going to release you on that one. Your next court date for that one, however, is going to be March 31st at 8:30 in the morning. And again, if you get released on your other cases and you get released on this one, don't return to the incident location where the shoplifting took place. That's where victims are, and you're just not allowed to go back there. And then it looks like there's a theft of services charge on that one as well. All right. Did you get the court date for that one, Mr. Bond, the March 31st date?
Yes, Judge, 8:30.
All right. And then we're also here to talk about some city court cases as well. Looks like there's 2 of those. Those are for drug paraphernalia charges as well, and they're warrants for failing to appear. Again, you're being held on the felony at this time and with your probation hold, but I'm going to release you on the city cases. I'm going to appoint the city public defender's office to represent you. And we're going to set something called a non-transport review hearing on May 16th at 9 a.m. Someone from the city public defender's office is going to be in contact with you. And basically what they're going to do is monitor your felony cases and figure out what they can do before that next court date to get your city court cases resolved as well. Again, if you fail to appear for your court dates when you get released, they could issue a warrant for your arrest. Do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear?
Yes, Your Honor.
And do you understand all the conditions of release I've imposed today if you are able to get released on these cases?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you're all done.
Okay, so you had a bunch of felony and misdemeanor warrants and things like that that were all holding you here. What the judge did was release you all the misdemeanor stuff. Where are your court dates for those? You still have 2 things you're holding here. So the felony probation hold out of Canal County, and a separate lawyer and judge are going to have to sort that out. And then you have these new drug possession charges. You're going to go to court next weekend and next week and find out if you get the opportunity to do that diversion program to make those all go away. Someone from my office will be in touch with you and I'll explain it a little better. Okay. All right, take it.
Vasquez.
Hi, tell me your name.
Daniel Vasquez.
Mr. Vasquez, you were here today on a warrant out of Maricopa County for a narcotic drug possession. It's a class 4 felony. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. Looks like the warrant was issued in September of 2024. There is a $2,500 bond amount on that warrant. That is, the court's inclination today is to impose that bond amount. That is going to be cash or secured. So, Mr. Vasquez, that's the amount I'm imposing today. Mr. Bond, do you have anything you want to add or say with respect to that?
Your Honor, again, it looks to be a low-level, simple possession charge. He has minimal 1 prior conviction for a drug possession prior to that. I would ask the court to consider releasing him and allowing him to reestablish contact with Maricopa County on his own.
Yes.
So I am going to, the $2,500 amount is what's on the warrant out of Maricopa County for this arrest. So I am going to leave that bond amount in place, Mr. Vasquez. If you do get released, then you will need to contact Maricopa County Superior Court. If you do get released and you post that bond, you can call them for the next court date. I'll give you that information. It'll be on the paperwork when you do get released. We're going to set another court date for you here, and the likelihood is you're going to be gone. You're not still going to be here, but we're going to set one just to make sure. So your next review hearing date here is going to be April 21st at 9. If for some reason you're still in custody, then we'll do just what we're doing here today and review the conditions of the warrant. So you do have the opportunity to post the bond on the Maricopa County case and then call them to set up a court date. If you don't post the bond, the jail here is going to notify Maricopa County and they'll come get you. Do you understand all of that, Mr. Vasquez?
So posting the bond, I can post the bond here?
Yes, you'd post the bond, and then if you get released, you have to call Maricopa County Superior Court. If you don't do that, they're going to issue another warrant for you. Do you understand?
I understand. It's just because I literally just got out of jail and
you don't need to spend it right now. Your Honor, was that cash or secured?
It is cash or secured, yes.
Okay, thank you. So that's the court hearing in Pima County if you haven't been transported or are out of jail. Williams.
Hi, tell me your name.
Hi, how you doing? My name is Daniel Williams.
Mr. Williams, you're here today on a warrant out for a misconduct involving weapons charge. It is a felony offense. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney in this matter. I'm going to appoint the legal defender's office to represent you. You do have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here today. He is not with the legal defender's office, but he'll be representing you as we discuss conditions of release for this case, which is what we're here to do. I've had an opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services that tells me a little bit about you, the circumstances of the offense. I've also had an opportunity to review the state's recommendation. The bond in this case is for $2,500. I am actually inclined to release Mr. Williams today to pretrial services with additional conditions. Mr. Poston, did you want to be heard further?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Bond?
Nothing further, Your Honor. Pretrial release would be outstanding.
So, Mr. Williams, I am going to release you today to pretrial services, but you have to go to court for the date that I give you. Do you understand?
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Your additional conditions of release, you do have to report to pretrial. You're not allowed to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs, and you are not allowed to have any firearms. Do you understand those conditions? Your next court date is going to be March 27th at 1:30 in the afternoon. That's going to be an arraignment. That is going to take place at Pima County Superior Court on the 3rd floor. You do need to make sure that you appear at that date and time. If you fail to appear, they're going to issue another warrant for your arrest. Do you
Yes, ma'am.
understand?
Thank you so much. Yes, ma'am.
All right. You are all done for today, Mr. Williams. All right. I think we are all done. Thank you, everyone, for your patience today. Have a wonderful day.